I stared at my phone as Dad's voicemail played through my AirPods. Rosalind, you will attend Madison's wedding this Saturday, or I'm done paying your tuition. I mean it this time. Your sister deserves family support, not your selfish excuses. I almost laughed out loud. My boss walked past my glass office, waving at me. Dad had no clue I'd graduated valedictorian 14 months ago. No clue I earned 6 figures. The envelope I'd been preparing sat in my desk drawer, waiting. The voicemail kept playing in my head as I leaned back in my office chair, looking out at the Seattle skyline. Dad's voice had that familiar edge of disappointment mixed with authority, the tone that used to make my stomach clench when I was younger. Now it just felt absurd. You've been making excuses for months, Rosalind, he'd continued in the message. Madison has been nothing but patient with you. This is her special day, and family shows up. If you can't be bothered to support your sister after everything we've done for you, then maybe it's time you learn to stand on your own 2 feet financially. Everything they'd done for me, the phrase was almost funny. Growing up, Madison got the private school education while I went to public school. She got a brand new Volkswagen Jetta for her 16th birthday with a big red bow on top. I got handed down Mom's old Toyota Camry with a broken air conditioner and a passenger window that wouldn't roll up all the way. When Madison wanted to redecorate her bedroom at 17, she got $5,000 to hire an interior designer. When I asked Dad to fix the leak in my ceiling that dripped every time it rained, he said he'd get to it eventually. He never did. I learned to position a bucket under the spot and empty it every morning. Madison's Sweet 16 party cost $15,000. There was a DJ, a catered dinner, and a photo booth. My parents rented out the country club. 200 guests attended. For my 16th birthday, Mom made a grocery store cake, and we had dinner at home, just the 4 of us. Dad spent most of the meal talking about Madison's upcoming college applications. Every dance recital Madison performed in, both parents were in the front row with flowers and a camera. Every academic award I won, every honor roll certificate, every scholarship competition I placed in, they were too busy. There was always something more important. A work meeting. One of Madison's events. Errands that couldn't wait. The pattern was so consistent that I started to think of it as normal. Madison needed more support, Dad always said. She was more sensitive, more social, needed more guidance. I was independent. Self-sufficient. I didn't need as much attention. What he really meant was that investing in me felt less rewarding to them. Madison was showy. She posted everything on social media, tagged them constantly, made sure everyone knew how wonderful her parents were. I was quiet. I studied. I worked. I didn't perform my gratitude for an audience. When it came time for college, Madison got a full ride from the bank of Mom and Dad. They paid her tuition at a private liberal arts college, covered her dorm fees, gave her a monthly allowance for food and entertainment, paid for her sorority dues, funded her spring break trips. She graduated with 0 debt and a degree in communications that she barely used. I got a different speech. You're so smart, Rosalind. You'll have no trouble getting scholarships. We believe in you. Translation: you're on your own. I took out student loans. I worked 3 jobs. I was a barista at a coffee shop near campus from 5 in the morning until 9. I tutored students in math and computer science from 3 in the afternoon until 6. I did freelance coding work in whatever hours remained, usually late into the night. I slept about 4 hours a night for 3 years, but I graduated summa cum laude. I won a competitive merit scholarship my junior year that covered the rest of my tuition. I landed an internship at a major tech company my senior year through pure merit and hard work. They offered me a full-time position before I even graduated. I accepted, finished my degree a semester early, and walked across that stage as valedictorian of my class at the University of Washington. My parents didn't come to my graduation. Madison had a bridal shower that same weekend, for a wedding that wouldn't happen for another 6 months. That was 14 months ago. I'd been working as a senior software engineer ever since. My starting salary was $135,000. After my first year review and a promotion, I now made $155,000, plus stock options and a generous bonus structure. I had $85,000 in my savings account. I owned my car outright, paid in cash from my signing bonus. I rented a beautiful one-bedroom apartment in downtown Seattle for $2,800 a month and paid it easily. I had no debt. None. I'd paid off my student loans in the first 8 months. And my family had no idea. I'd made the decision not to tell them the day I got my diploma in the mail. I wanted to run an experiment. I wanted to see if they could love me, be proud of me, reach out to me, without needing anything from me, without it benefiting them somehow. It was a test of their character. So far, they were failing spectacularly. The only calls I got were demands. Come to this event for Madison. Send a gift for Madison's engagement. Contribute to Madison's wedding. Show up and smile and play the role of supportive little sister while they continued to treat me like an afterthought. 6 months ago, Madison got engaged to Brandon, a guy who worked in finance and came from money. The wedding budget ballooned to over $80,000. My parents contributed $40,000. They announced this proudly on Facebook. Dozens of people commented about how generous they were. What wonderful parents. I wasn't invited to be a bridesmaid. Wasn't invited to the dress shopping trips, the bridal showers, the bachelorette party in Miami. Madison's social media was full of photos from all these events. Her and her bridesmaids in matching robes, holding champagne glasses. Her and Mom crying happy tears in a bridal boutique. Her showing off her ring in dozens of posed shots. I was expected to attend the wedding, though. That was my role. Show up, sit quietly, smile for photos if asked, and fade into the background. Until 3 days ago, when Madison called. Rosie, she'd said, using the nickname I'd always hated. Her voice was syrupy sweet, the tone she used when she wanted something. I've been thinking, and I feel just terrible that you're not in the wedding party. For 1 second, one brief, stupid second, hope had flickered in my chest. Maybe she actually cared. Maybe this was a genuine olive branch. I'd love for you to be a bridesmaid after all, Madison continued. There's still time, you just need to buy the dress. It's $500, but it's so gorgeous you'll love it. And we're all getting our hair and makeup done together the morning of the wedding. That's $300. Oh, and we're doing a group gift for the honeymoon fund. Everyone's contributing at least $1,000, so you'd need to do that too. But then you'd be part of everything. Doesn't that sound amazing? $1,800. She wanted me to go into debt because she still thought I was a struggling student with loans to be included in her wedding at the last minute. Why now? I'd asked carefully. Well, Madison had laughed, and I could hear the fakeness in it. Honestly, we're a little over budget. Dad mentioned you'd probably want to help out. You know, family and all. It's what we do for each other. There it was. They didn't want me in the wedding party. They wanted my money. Or rather, they wanted me to take on more debt so they could have their perfect day without financial stress. I told her I'd think about it and hung up. That's when I started preparing the envelope. Now, sitting in my corner office with my name on the door, managing a team of 3 talented engineers, I pulled open my desk drawer. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, expensive. I'd printed everything on high-quality paper. My diploma, with valedictorian clearly marked in elegant script. My offer letter from the company, showing my salary in black and white. My most recent pay stub, showing a gross pay of $12,916 for half a month's work. Photos of my office, photos of my apartment, and a letter I'd written explaining everything. I'd also included a check for $50,000 made out to my father. The memo line read, "Return to sender. Money you wasted on me. Never needed it." I wasn't planning to cash it, obviously. It was symbolic. A visual representation of the fact that I'd made it without them. That their neglect hadn't broken me. It had made me stronger. My boyfriend Ethan knocked on my glass door and poked his head in. "Still good for lunch?" I smiled at him, closing the drawer. "Absolutely. Let me just finish this email." Ethan was one of the best things that had happened to me in Seattle. We'd met at a tech industry mixer a year ago. He was kind, supportive, brilliant in his own right as a senior developer at another company. When I'd told him about my family situation, about the experiment I was running, he'd understood immediately. "You deserve people who love you for you," he'd said, "not for what you can do for them." I was starting to believe him. Friday afternoon, I loaded my overnight bag into the trunk of my Honda Accord and started the 4-hour drive from Seattle to Spokane, my hometown, the place I'd left behind with no intention of looking back. The drive gave me time to think. Time to replay the entire history of being second best, second choice, second thought. I'd made a playlist of empowering songs, music that made me feel strong and capable. I sang along loudly, windows down, letting the spring air rush through the car. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, not just the drive, but the whole path. I remembered being 19 years old, pulling a double shift at the coffee shop, and then going straight to a 4-hour tutoring session, my feet aching, my eyes burning from exhaustion. I remembered studying organic chemistry at 2 a.m, drinking my 4th cup of coffee, knowing I had to be back at work at 5. I remembered the night I finally paid off my last student loan, sitting in my apartment, staring at the zero balance on my screen and crying with relief. I remembered my first day at my job, walking into that beautiful office building, riding the elevator up to the 12th floor, seeing my name on the door of my own office. I'd stood there for 5 minutes, just looking at it. Rosalind Chen, senior software engineer. I'd done it, all by myself. Wait, no, not Chen. I needed to use a different last name, Rosalind Parker. That was better. I shook my head, refocusing on the road. The landscape changed from urban Seattle to the more rural areas of eastern Washington. Rolling hills, farmland, wide open sky. It was beautiful in its own way, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Home was my apartment with its view of the Space Needle. Home was my office with my team. Home was the life I'd built. I wasn't staying with my parents. I'd booked a room at the Hampton Inn near the wedding venue and texted Mom that I was already settled. She'd replied with a curt fine and nothing else. No safe travels, no excited to see you. Just fine. The hotel was clean and comfortable. I checked in, went up to my room, and laid out my outfit for the wedding. The navy dress I'd bought at Nordstrom hung perfectly on the hanger. It had cost $400, and I hadn't blinked at the price tag. The matching shoes and clutch were elegant, professional but beautiful. I looked like the successful woman I was. I carefully placed the envelope in the clutch. Tomorrow everything would change. But first, I had to survive the family dinner. Dad had insisted on a family dinner Friday night at their house. A chance for everyone to gather before the big day, he'd said. I knew it was really just another opportunity to worship at the altar of Madison. I arrived at 7, parking on the street instead of the driveway, leaving myself an easy exit if I needed one. The house looked exactly the same as it had when I'd left for college. Same beige siding, same brown shutters, same neglected flower beds that Mom had given up on years ago. I walked up to the front door and rang the bell. Even though I'd grown up here, it didn't feel right to just walk in. This wasn't my home anymore. Mom answered, looking harried. Oh, you made it. Not hello, not a hug, just a statement of fact. I said I would, I replied evenly. The house was chaos. Wedding decorations were everywhere. White tulle draped over doorways, boxes of party favors stacked in the corner. Madison's wedding dress hung on a mannequin in the living room, the train spilling across the floor. Everything revolved around tomorrow. Madison was in the kitchen, surrounded by bridesmaids, all of them laughing about something. She saw me and waved, but didn't get up. Hey, Rosie, you're here. I am. Great. We're just finishing up some last-minute details. Make yourself comfortable. Translation: we're busy with important things. Entertain yourself. Dad was in the dining room with Brandon, going over the seating chart one more time. He glanced up when I entered. Rosalind, good. You're here. We're just about to eat. No hug, no smile, just acknowledgement of my presence. The table was set for 8 people. Mom and Dad at the heads of the table. Madison and Brandon on one side, along with Brandon's parents, George and Linda. Me on the other side, sitting alone with 2 empty chairs beside me like bookends of isolation. George and Linda were polite when we were introduced. They shook my hand warmly, asked how I was doing. Madison has told us so much about you, Linda said. I wondered what exactly Madison had told them. Probably not the truth. Dinner was Mom's pot roast with roasted vegetables and mashed potatoes. It was actually good, but no one complimented her on it. The conversation flowed around me like I was a rock in a stream. "We've spared no expense for Madison's special day," Dad announced proudly, cutting into his meat. "Nothing's too good for our successful daughter." Successful. Madison was a receptionist at a dental office. She made maybe $35,000 a year, but she was successful in the ways that mattered to them. She was getting married. She was photogenic. She performed happiness for an audience. "The flowers alone cost $6,000, Mom added. "But they're going to be stunning. Madison has such exquisite taste. Must be nice to have free time to plan such an elaborate wedding," someone said. I think it was George. What with Madison's demanding career and all. There was an awkward pause. Everyone knew Madison's job was not demanding in the slightest. Dad jumped in. "Madison has always been so good at balancing everything. Career, relationships, family. She's remarkable. Unlike some people who just hide away in school forever," Madison said sweetly, looking directly at me. The table went quiet. "Madison," Brandon said softly, a warning in his tone. "What?" "I'm just saying, Rosalind. When do you think you'll finally graduate? You've been in school for what, 5 years now?" "4 years is standard for a bachelor's degree," I said calmly. "Some people finish in 3.5. "Right. But you're still there, aren't you? Still taking classes?" I smiled blandly. "Something like that." "Must be hard, being so far behind in life," Madison continued. "I mean, I already have my career, my house, and now my marriage. What do you have?" Brandon looked mortified. Linda and George exchanged uncomfortable glances. Mom and Dad said nothing. They never did when Madison took shots at me. "I have peace of mind," I said quietly. Madison laughed. "That's what people say when they have nothing else." I took a sip of water and let it go. Tomorrow. I just had to make it until tomorrow. The rest of dinner continued in the same vein. Every topic circled back to Madison. Her dress, her flowers, her honeymoon plans, her future, her dreams. When Linda asked me about my studies, trying to be polite, Dad interrupted to talk about how Madison had graduated with honors. She hadn't. She'd graduated with a 2.8 GPA. After dinner, I helped Mom clear the plates while everyone else moved to the living room. Madison, of course, didn't help. She never had. In the kitchen, I scraped plates and loaded the dishwasher while Mom wrapped leftovers. We worked in silence for a few minutes. "You know your sister needs support right now," Mom finally said. "This is a stressful time for her. Getting married to a man who clearly loves her and having an $80,000 wedding funded largely by you and Dad is stressful?" I asked. "Don't be sarcastic, Rosalind. It doesn't suit you." "What would suit me, Mom?" She didn't answer. I heard voices from the living room and paused, listening. Dad and Madison were talking, their voices low but audible from where I stood. "She'll do it," Madison was saying. "She always does what she's told." "Are you sure?" That was Dad. She seemed reluctant on the phone. "Positive. She's desperate for approval, for you to finally notice her. She'll give us the money for the honeymoon fund if we frame it right. Make it seem like it's her chance to finally contribute something meaningful to this family." My hands stilled in the soapy dishwater. $5,000 should cover the shortfall, Dad said. And she owes us anyway. We raised her. She can take out another student loan if she needs to. "Exactly," Madison laughed. "I mean, what's another $5,000 in debt when she already has so much? At least this way she'll be useful." Mom had frozen beside me, a container of leftover pot roast in her hands. She'd heard it too. Our eyes met. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Shame, maybe, or discomfort. But then she looked away and busied herself with the leftovers. She wasn't going to say anything. She never did. I dried my hands on a dish towel, walked calmly to the living room, and said my goodbyes. I should get going. Big day tomorrow. Need to get some rest. "See you at the venue," Madison sang out. "Don't be late." "I won't be," I promised. And I meant it. I wouldn't miss this for the world. Saturday morning, I woke up at 6 in the hotel room. The wedding wasn't until 2 in the afternoon, but I wanted time to prepare. Not just physically, but mentally. I went down to the hotel gym and did 30 minutes on the treadmill, then some weight training. Exercise always helped me think clearly. As I ran, I thought about what I'd overheard last night. The calculation in their voices. The casual cruelty. They'd been planning to manipulate me into going further into debt. Debt they thought I had, just to cover their overspending on Madison's wedding. They saw me as a resource, a last resort when they needed extra cash. Not as a daughter, not as a person with my own life and struggles. Just a convenient ATM they could guilt into dispensing funds. After my workout, I showered and took my time getting ready. I'd brought my own hairstyling tools, my own makeup. Everything was precise, controlled, perfect. I dried my hair until it fell in smooth waves past my shoulders. I applied makeup carefully, going for a natural but polished look. When I slipped into the navy dress, I looked at myself in the full-length mirror. I looked successful, confident, put together. I looked like someone who had her life figured out. The envelope sat on the dresser, thick and full of truth. I picked it up, holding it carefully. This was it. The moment I'd been building toward for 14 months. The moment I stopped being invisible and demanded to be seen. I arrived at the country club at 1:30. The venue was beautiful, I had to admit. Sweeping grounds, elegant architecture, professional landscaping. White chairs set up in perfect rows facing an altar decorated with thousands of dollars worth of flowers. A tent set up nearby for the reception, with chandeliers and uplighting and a dance floor that gleamed. Guests were starting to arrive, dressed in their finest. I recognized some faces from my childhood. Neighbors, family friends, distant relatives I hadn't seen in years. Several of them did double takes when they saw me. "Rosalind?" Aunt Helen approached, her eyes wide. "Sweetie, is that you?" "Oh my goodness, look at you. You look absolutely stunning." I hugged her, feeling genuine warmth for the first time since arriving in Spokane. Aunt Helen was Dad's older sister, and she'd always been kind to me. She was one of the few people who seemed to notice how differently my parents treated their daughters. "Thank you, Aunt Helen. Seriously, honey, you look like $1,000,000. She held me at arm's length, studying me. "Life must be treating you well." "Something like that," I said with a small smile. Uncle Thomas joined us, along with my cousins Jamie and Alex. They all echoed Aunt Helen's surprise and compliments. It felt good, being seen. Being recognized as someone beyond the struggling student my parents had painted me as. "Where are you sitting?" Jamie asked. "Are you in the family section?" "I'm in row 3, I said. "Table 8 at the reception." Aunt Helen's mouth tightened. "Row 3. Not even row 2 with the rest of the family." "It's fine," I assured her. Really, but it wasn't fine, and we both knew it. The ceremony began at 2. I sat in my assigned seat between distant cousins I barely knew, watching as the processional started. Madison's bridesmaids walked down the aisle in their expensive dresses, smiling and posing. Then came Madison herself on Dad's arm, looking admittedly beautiful in her elaborate gown. Brandon stood at the altar, smiling nervously. He seemed like a decent guy. I hoped he knew what he was getting into. The ceremony was traditional, classic, tasteful. The officiant talked about love and commitment and partnership. I wondered if Madison was capable of any of those things, or if this was just another performance. Another event to post about on social media. When they exchanged vows, I felt oddly detached. This wasn't my life. These weren't my people. Not really. I was an observer in my own family, watching from the outside looking in. After the ceremony, guests moved to cocktail hour in the garden area while photos were taken. I got a glass of wine and mingled, making small talk with relatives I hadn't seen in years. Everyone commented on how good I looked, how grown up I seemed. Some asked about school. I deflected vaguely, hinting that I was nearly done, that things were going well. That's when Brandon found me. He approached while I was standing alone near the edge of the garden, looking out at the golf course beyond. "Rosalind, can we talk for a minute?" I turned, surprised. "Sure. Congratulations, by the way." Thanks. He looked uncomfortable, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Listen, I need to ask you something, and I hope you won't take offense. Okay. Madison has told me a lot about you over the past few months. Actually, she's been pretty consistent in what she said, and I'm starting to think maybe it's not true. My stomach tightened. What has she told you? Brandon took a deep breath. She said you have a serious drug problem, that you've been in and out of rehab multiple times, that you stole money from your parents to support your habit, and that's why they had to cut you off financially. She said you're mentally unstable, possibly dangerous, and that she was worried you might cause a scene at the wedding. The words hit me like physical blows. I stood there, frozen, processing what he'd just said. But, Brandon continued quickly, you don't seem like any of those things. You seem completely normal. Actually, you seem more put together than most people here, including my new wife. So, I'm confused. Why would Madison lie like that about her own sister? I couldn't speak for a moment. The depth of Madison's cruelty was staggering. It was one thing to exclude me, to take shots at me, to see me as less than, but to actively destroy my reputation? To paint me as an addict and a thief to her future husband. I don't have a drug problem, I finally said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. I've never been to rehab. I've never stolen anything from anyone. I'm not mentally unstable. Brandon nodded slowly. I didn't think so. But why would she make all that up? Because she's jealous, I said simply. Because despite getting everything handed to her on a silver platter, she still sees me as a threat. A threat? How? I pulled the envelope from my clutch. You'll find out soon enough. Everyone will. Brandon looked at the envelope, confused. But before he could ask more questions, someone called him back for more photos. He left, throwing one more puzzled glance over his shoulder. I stood there, holding the envelope, my hands shaking slightly. Not from nerves, from anger, from determination, from the knowledge that I was about to blow up everything. And I couldn't wait. The reception hall was stunning. Chandeliers dripped crystal above round tables draped in ivory linens. Centerpieces of white roses and hydrangeas sat on every table, surrounded by flickering candles. The head table was on a raised platform, giving Madison and Brandon a perfect view of their subjects. I found my assigned seat at table 8. As predicted, I was far from the head table, tucked in the back with people who barely knew me. Aunt Helen and Uncle Thomas were at my table, along with some older cousins and a few family friends. At least the company was decent. This is ridiculous, Aunt Helen muttered as we sat down. You're her sister, and they have you seated back here like you're a stranger. It's fine, I said for what felt like the 100th time. It's not fine. It's never been fine. Uncle Thomas shook his head. Your parents have been pulling this garbage for 25 years, and I'm sick of watching it. I squeezed his hand gratefully. Thank you for noticing. Dinner was served. Fancy plated meals that probably cost $100 per person. Filet mignon, roasted asparagus, truffle mashed potatoes. It was delicious, but I could barely taste it. My heart was pounding in anticipation. After dinner, the speeches began. The best man, one of Brandon's college friends, went first. His speech was funny and warm, full of stories about Brandon's loyalty and kindness. It made me like Brandon more and worry about him more in equal measure. Then came the maid of honor, Madison's best friend since high school. Her speech was different, pointed. Madison has always known who her real supporters are, she said, looking around the room meaningfully. She surrounds herself with people who show up when it matters, who put her first, who understand what true family means, not people who only appear when it's convenient for them. The jab was clearly directed at me. Several people glanced my way. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was seething. Then Dad stood up to give his speech. My beautiful daughter Madison, he began, his voice thick with emotion. Watching you grow into the woman you are today has been the greatest joy of my life. Your mother and I have given everything to our daughters, sacrificed so much to provide opportunities, to support their dreams. But Madison, you've always made it easy. You've made us proud, every single day. He went on for 5 minutes. 5 minutes about Madison's beauty, her grace, her ambition, her perfect choices. 5 minutes where he managed not to mention his other daughter at all. Not once. Not even a passing reference to family or siblings in general. I watched several guests shift uncomfortably. Aunt Helen's face was red with anger. Uncle Thomas looked disgusted. When Dad finished, Mom stood up. Her speech was more of the same. Praising Madison, talking about the sacrifices they'd made as parents, highlighting Madison's successes. "We've supported her every step of the way," Mom said. "Nothing has been too much. We'd do anything for our successful, beautiful daughter." Still no mention of me. When Mom sat down, there was polite applause, but the energy in the room felt weird. Off. People were starting to notice the elephant in the room. Or rather, the missing daughter in the speeches. The DJ announced that the cake would be cut soon, and people started to relax, moving around, refreshing drinks, chatting. That's when I saw Dad and Madison walking purposefully toward my table. "Here we go. Rosalind, can we talk?" Dad's voice had that false cheerfulness he used when he wanted something. I stood up, following them to a quiet corner near the bar. Madison was smiling, but her eyes were calculating. "So," Madison began, "did you bring a gift? I noticed you didn't get us anything from our registry." "I haven't gotten anything yet," I said honestly. I wanted to wait until I could afford something meaningful. Dad jumped in. "Actually, Rosalind, your sister and brother-in-law could use some help with their honeymoon expenses. We all want to contribute to making their trip special." "We're thinking everyone should pitch in," Madison added. "Family especially. It's what you do for people you love." "And I know you have student loans," Dad said, his voice taking on that familiar, condescending tone. "But you can spare $5,000. You can take out another loan if you need to. We've done so much for you over the years. It's time you gave back." Several people were nearby, within earshot. Aunt Helen was standing just a few feet away, pretending to look at her phone but clearly listening. Other guests were milling around, some of them starting to pay attention to our conversation. "Perfect. Actually," I said calmly, "I'd like to say a few words." "Rosalind, this isn't the time," Dad said quickly. "Oh, I think it's the perfect time." I walked toward the DJ booth. "What are you doing?" Madison hissed. "Just want to toast the happy couple," I said over my shoulder. Madison couldn't protest without looking terrible. She followed me, her smile frozen on her face, her eyes shooting daggers. I reached the DJ and asked politely for the microphone. He looked at Madison, who nodded stiffly, and handed it to me. The room quieted as I walked to the center of the dance floor, holding the microphone. Every eye in the room turned to me. This was it, the moment of truth. "Hi, everyone," I began, my voice steady and clear. "I'm Rosalind, Madison's sister." Polite applause, curious faces. "I want to thank my family for this beautiful wedding and for teaching me some of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned." People smiled, expecting a sweet speech. Growing up, I learned the importance of independence. While my sister received support and encouragement, I learned to support and encourage myself. While she was given opportunities, I learned to create my own. I worked 3 jobs through college. I studied until 3 in the morning most nights. I slept about 4 hours a night for 3 years. The room was getting quieter now. People were sensing this was going somewhere unexpected. But I graduated summa cum laude from the University of Washington. Pause. Let that sink in. Actually, I should clarify. I graduated 14 months ago. I was valedictorian of my class. Gasps throughout the room. Dad's face went pale. Madison's smile faltered. I've been working as a senior software engineer at a tech company in Seattle since then. I make a comfortable 6-figure salary. Actually, to be specific, I make $155,000 a year, plus stock options and performance bonuses. More gasps. People pulling out their phones, recording. This was better than I'd imagined. My parents don't know this because I never told them. I wanted to see if they could love me without needing me, if they could be proud of me without it benefiting them somehow. I started walking toward the head table, toward Dad. He looked frozen. I've been financially independent since graduation. I own my car outright. I pay rent on a beautiful apartment in downtown Seattle. I have no debt, none. I paid off my student loans in 8 months. I pulled the envelope from my clutch. Dad, you left me a voicemail this week. You threatened to cut off tuition payments if I didn't attend this wedding. You said I was selfish, that I didn't support my family. I handed him the envelope. He took it with shaking hands. Here's your answer. The room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Dad opened the envelope slowly, his fingers fumbling. He pulled out the diploma first. His eyes went wide. Then the offer letter, the pay stub, the photos, the letter I'd written. And finally, the check fluttered out, falling onto the table. $50,000. Multiple people gasped. Someone said, "Oh my God," loudly. Mom stood up, her hand over her mouth. Madison grabbed the papers from Dad, reading them frantically, her face cycling through confusion, shock, realization, and then rage. "The check is to repay you for any money you think you wasted on me," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying through the stunned silence. "Though we both know you spent a fraction on me compared to what you lavished on Madison, I won't be cashing it. Consider it a reminder that I never needed you. I succeeded despite you, not because of you." I handed the microphone back to the DJ and walked toward the exit. The room erupted. For a moment, nobody moved. Then everything happened at once. Dad tried to speak, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. No words came out. He just stared at the check in his hands, at the pay stub showing my bi-weekly salary, at my diploma with the valedictorian seal gleaming in gold. Mom burst into tears, loud, ugly sobs that echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. And Madison screamed, "How dare you!" She lunged toward me, but Brandon caught her arm, holding her back. "This is my wedding! My day! How dare you make this about you?" I turned back to face her, my voice calm. "I came here because family should matter. But you've made it very clear that I only matter when you need something from me." "You're lying!" Madison shrieked, her carefully styled hair starting to come loose as she struggled against Brandon's grip. "You're making all of this up." "The documents are real," I said, simply. "Anyone can verify them. The University of Washington keeps graduation records. My employer has a website listing their employees." "I don't care!" Madison's face was red, twisted with rage. Her mask of perfection had completely shattered. "You always have to ruin everything. You can't just let me have one day. One perfect day." "Madison, stop," Brandon said quietly, but she wasn't listening. "You're so selfish. So jealous. You've always been jealous of me." Several guests were openly recording now. Phones pointed at Madison as she completely melted down in her $5,000 wedding dress. This was going to be all over social media by morning. "Sweetheart, calm down," Mom tried, reaching for Madison. "Don't tell me to calm down." Madison turned on her. "This is your fault. You should have controlled her. You should have made sure she knew her place." The ugly truth of how Madison really saw me, saw the family dynamics, was spilling out for everyone to see. Aunt Helen stood up from our table. Her voice rang out clear and strong. "Madison, stop it. Stop it right now. Rosalind just proved she's done nothing but succeed on her own, while you've had everything handed to you. Stay out of this, Aunt Helen." "No." Uncle Thomas stood up too. "We've watched your parents favor you for 25 years. We've watched them give you everything while Rosalind got scraps, and she still succeeded. She did it without them, without their support, without their money. She's remarkable, and you can't stand it." Other relatives started speaking up. Cousins who'd noticed the favoritism. Family friends who'd seen how differently the two sisters were treated. Even some of Madison's own friends looked uncomfortable, whispering to each other. "We all saw it," someone else said. An older woman I didn't recognize. At every family gathering, every holiday, Rosalind was always overlooked. Dad finally found his voice. "Rosalind, please. We didn't know. We thought you needed us. We thought you were still in school." "Because you never asked," I said. "You never called to check on me. Never asked how I was really doing. You only called when you wanted something for Madison. That's not true, Mom said through her tears. Isn't it? When's the last time you called just to talk to me, Mom? When's the last time you asked about my life? She couldn't answer. We thought Madison needed more support, Dad said weakly. She was more fragile, more sensitive. Aunt Helen laughed bitterly. She wasn't fragile. She was spoiled. There's a difference. You were always so independent, Rosalind, Dad continued, grasping at straws. You didn't seem to need us. She shouldn't have had to be independent at 15, Frank, Uncle Thomas said sharply. She was a child. Your child. And you made her raise herself while you catered to Madison's every whim. I was jealous of you, Mom said suddenly, her voice breaking. Is that what you want to hear? I was jealous of my own daughter. The room went quiet again. You were so smart, Mom continued, mascara running down her face. So capable. You didn't need me. Madison did. Madison made me feel important, needed. You just made me feel inadequate. So you punished me for being competent? I asked softly. I didn't mean to. I just didn't know how to connect with you. So I focused on the daughter who did need me. It was the first real thing my mother had said to me in years. And it was too little, too late. That's your excuse? Aunt Helen looked disgusted. You were threatened by your own child's intelligence, so you neglected her? Mom just cried harder. Brandon had pulled Madison to the side, near the windows. I could see them through the glass, arguing. Madison was gesticulating wildly, still crying, still raging. Brandon's face was stone, his jaw clenched. He said something sharp, and Madison's eyes went wide. Inside, the reception had descended into chaos. Some guests were leaving. Others were clustered in groups, gossiping. The wedding cake sat untouched. The DJ had stopped the music. The beautiful, perfect, expensive wedding was falling apart. I felt no satisfaction in that. I hadn't wanted to ruin Madison's day. I'd wanted to free myself. When you're ready to have a real conversation, I said to my parents, you have my number, but I won't be begging for your love anymore. I won't be the family ATM. I won't be the afterthought. Either you want a real relationship with me, or you don't. Your choice. I walked toward the exit. Aunt Helen caught up with me in the hallway outside the ballroom. Rosalind, honey, wait. I turned, and she pulled me into a fierce hug. I am so proud of you, she whispered. We've always been proud of you. I'm sorry we didn't do more to stand up for you when you were younger. Uncle Thomas joined us, hugging me too. You're an incredible young woman. Don't let them make you doubt that. I don't, I said. Not anymore. We exchanged phone numbers, real contact information. Aunt Helen made me promise to visit her in Portland. Uncle Thomas invited me to his daughter's graduation next month. These were real relationships, genuine connections. I said goodbye and walked out to my car. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful. Everything felt surreal. I sat in my car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, breathing. It was done. I'd told the truth. I'd stood up for myself. I'd demanded to be seen. And it felt incredible. I started the car and began the drive back to Seattle. Back to my real life. Back to the home I'd built. The career I'd earned. The future I was creating. My phone rang about an hour into the drive. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again and again. I ignored it. I needed silence, space, time to process. Finally, at a rest stop, I checked my messages. Most were from family members I barely knew, some supportive, some angry on behalf of my parents. I deleted those, but there was one from a number I didn't recognize. I listened to the voicemail. Rosalind, this is Brandon. I need to talk to you. Please call me back when you can. It's important. I almost deleted it. This wasn't my problem. But something in his voice made me call back. He answered on the first ring. Thank you for calling me. What is it, Brandon? I confronted Madison about what you said. About the lies she told me about you. The drug addiction, the stealing, the mental instability. And she admitted it. All of it. She said she lied because she was jealous of you. She was afraid that if I knew the truth about how smart and capable you were, I might like you more than her. She wanted to make sure I saw you as the family screw up so I'd never question why they treated you the way they did. I closed my eyes, the pain of that confession cutting deeper than I expected. She also told me other things, Brandon continued, about how she really sees people, how she sees me. She said some things tonight, in the heat of the moment, that I can't unhear. I'm sorry. Don't be. You did me a favor. I need to think about whether I can actually go through with this marriage. We signed the venue contract. We had the ceremony, but we haven't filed the legal paperwork yet. We were supposed to go to the courthouse Monday to make it official. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But I wanted to thank you for having the courage to tell the truth, even if it blew everything up. We talked for a few more minutes, then said goodbye. As I got back on the highway, I thought about the ripple effects of truth, how one moment of honesty could change everything. I didn't feel guilty. Madison had built her perfect life on a foundation of lies and manipulation. If it was crumbling now, that was on her, not me. I made it back to Seattle after midnight. My apartment had never looked so welcoming. I kicked off my shoes, changed into comfortable clothes, and sat on my couch, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. How did it go? I called him instead of texting back. When he answered, I said, I did it. I told them everything. And it was exactly as bad and exactly as good as I thought it would be. He listened as I recounted the whole evening. He didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just let me process out loud. I'm proud of you, he said when I finished. That took incredible courage. I'm exhausted, I admitted. Get some sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. But sleep didn't come easily. I lay in bed replaying the evening. Madison's screams, Dad's shocked face, Mom's confession. The truth bomb I'd dropped in front of 200 people. I'd changed everything. There was no going back now. And I was okay with that. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. I threw myself into work, leading my team through a critical product launch. The normalcy of code reviews and stand-up meetings and client presentations was grounding. This was my real life. The drama in Spokane felt like something that had happened to someone else. But the fallout continued, reaching me through text messages and phone calls I mostly ignored. Aunt Helen kept me updated. Apparently, Madison's meltdown had been recorded by at least a dozen guests. The videos went viral on local social media. Not national news, thankfully, but enough that people in Spokane were talking. The perfect, beautiful, blessed Madison had been exposed as someone cruel and entitled. Brandon had indeed annulled the marriage. They'd never filed the legal paperwork, so technically, they were never legally married at all. He'd moved out of the house they were supposed to share and was staying with his parents. Word was that he was devastated, not just about Madison's lies about me, but about who she really was underneath the polished exterior. Madison had to return all the wedding gifts, which must have been humiliating. Her social media presence, once full of carefully curated perfection, went dark. Aunt Helen heard she'd lost several friends who were appalled by her behavior. Mom and Dad were apparently not speaking much. Dad was defensive, insisting he'd done his best as a father. Mom was in therapy, actually confronting her jealousy and failures as a parent. They were both dealing with the social fallout, with relatives and friends who now saw them differently. I felt bad for them. Not bad enough to reach out first, but bad. They were facing consequences for decades of choices, and that had to be painful. On a Wednesday, 2 weeks and 3 days after the wedding, my phone rang with Dad's number. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello? Rosalind. His voice was different. Smaller. Thank you for answering. What do you need, Dad? Nothing. I don't need anything. I want to talk, if you're willing. I took a breath. I'm listening. I've been in therapy. Your mother and I both have. Separately and together. We've been talking about everything, our marriage, our parenting, our failures, and there have been a lot of failures, especially with you. I waited. I want to apologize. Not because I want something from you, or because I think an apology will fix things, but because you deserve to hear it. I failed you as a father. I favored your sister consistently, for years, and I convinced myself it was for good reasons. That she needed more support, that you were fine on your own. But the truth is, it was easier. Madison demanded attention, and you didn't, so I gave her what she demanded and ignored what you needed. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Rosalind. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your academic achievements. I'm sorry I didn't come to your graduation. I'm sorry I threatened you instead of congratulating you when you succeeded. I'm sorry I saw you as a resource instead of my daughter. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I didn't speak. He needed to say this. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect us to have a relationship. But I want you to know that I see now what I did. I see how badly I hurt you. And I'm going to work on being better, whether or not you're in my life. Why? I finally asked. Why now? Because I almost lost you completely, and I realized I never really had you at all. I had a daughter who lived in my house, but I never knew her. I never tried to know her. And that's the biggest regret of my life. We talked for an hour. It was the longest, most honest conversation we'd ever had. He didn't make excuses. He took responsibility. He asked about my life, really asked, and listened to the answers. When we hung up, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the possibility of it someday. 2 days later, Mom called. Her apology was even harder to hear because it was so raw. I was jealous of you, she said again. You were everything I wasn't. Smart, independent, capable. And instead of being proud, I felt threatened. So I pushed you away and clung to Madison because she needed me in ways you didn't. I did need you, Mom, I said quietly. I just needed you differently. I know. I see that now. And I'm so sorry. She told me she was continuing therapy, working through her own issues of inadequacy and control. She asked if we could have coffee sometime, just the two of us. I said maybe. Eventually. Madison didn't call, didn't apologize. According to Aunt Helen, she was still in denial, still blaming me for ruining her wedding. She'd moved back in with our parents, which was apparently a disaster. She spent her days in her old bedroom, scrolling through social media, mourning her lost life. I felt a twinge of pity for her, but I couldn't fix her. That was her journey. 3 weeks after the wedding, I got home from work to find Ethan waiting outside my apartment building with flowers and takeout from my favorite Thai place. What's this? I asked, smiling. A celebration. Your parents' mess isn't your responsibility anymore. You're free. That deserves recognition. We ate dinner on my couch, and afterward he took my hand. I have something to ask you. Okay. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and my heart stopped. Rosalind, you're the strongest, smartest, most incredible person I've ever met. You've built an amazing life for yourself, and I want to be part of it. Will you marry me? The ring was beautiful. Simple, elegant, perfect, just like him. Yes, I said, tears streaming down my face. Yes, absolutely yes. We kissed, and for the first time in weeks, I felt purely, completely happy. No shadows of the past, no family drama, just this moment, this man, this future we were choosing together. The next day at work, I told my team. They cheered and hugged me. My boss congratulated me and mentioned she was considering me for a promotion to lead engineer. My life was full of people who valued me, respected me, celebrated me. I called Aunt Helen to tell her about the engagement. She was thrilled. Your uncle and I would love to come to the wedding. And honey, you do whatever feels right about your parents and Madison. This is your day. I'll probably invite Mom and Dad, I said slowly, with very clear boundaries. Madison, I don't know yet. That's fair. It's your choice. You don't owe anyone anything. That weekend, Ethan and I drove to his parents' house in Tacoma to celebrate. His family was warm, welcoming, genuinely excited for us. His mom cried happy tears and hugged me tight. His dad shook Ethan's hand and told him he was a lucky man. This was what family should feel like. We started planning a small wedding. Intimate, meaningful, just the people who truly loved and supported us. No performance, no trying to impress anyone. Just two people choosing each other, surrounded by chosen family. My promotion came through a week later, lead software engineer, with a salary increase to $180,000. I'd earned it through hard work and skill, not family connections or manipulation. I was building the life I wanted, brick by brick, choice by choice. One evening, I sat in my apartment, looking at my engagement ring, thinking about the journey. From the overlooked little girl with the leaky ceiling to the successful woman with her own office, her own life, her own love, I'd proven something to myself, that I didn't need their approval to thrive. That being ignored and underestimated had made me stronger, not weaker. That success earned through hard work meant more than success handed to you. Would I have chosen this path? No. I'd have preferred loving, supportive parents who celebrated both their daughters equally, but that wasn't my reality. So I'd made my own reality instead. And it was pretty damn good. 4 months after the wedding that changed everything, I sat across from my parents at a coffee shop in downtown Seattle. It was our 4th meeting since that phone call from Dad. We were taking it slow, rebuilding carefully. "Your mother and I want you to know," Dad said, stirring his coffee nervously, "that we're not asking to be fully back in your life. We understand we have to earn that, but we're trying." "I see that," I said honestly. "The therapy seems to be helping." Mom nodded. "I'm learning a lot about myself. None of it is particularly flattering, but it's necessary." We talked about surface things at first. My promotion, their attempts to repair their marriage, the changing leaves on the trees outside. But then Dad asked, "How's wedding planning going?" "Good. We're keeping it small. About 40 people at a winery in Woodinville. Very intimate." "That sounds lovely," Mom said. A pause. "Are we invited?" I'd been dreading this question. Yes, with some conditions. Of course, anything. No comparisons to Madison's wedding. No comments about what we're spending or not spending. No trying to take over or offer unsolicited advice. You come as guests, not as parents who think they have control. "Understood," Dad said firmly. "We'll be honored to be there on your terms." "And Madison?" Mom asked quietly. "I haven't decided yet." Madison had finally reached out the week before. Not a call, just a text. "I'm sorry for what I said at my wedding. That wasn't fair." It wasn't a real apology. It didn't acknowledge the years of cruelty, the lies she'd told Brandon, the way she'd tried to destroy my reputation. It was the bare minimum, the kind of apology someone gives when they've been told they should. I hadn't responded yet. "She's struggling," Mom said. "She lost Brandon, lost friends, lost the life she thought she was building." "That's not my fault," I said gently but firmly. "No, it's not. It's hers. And ours. We enabled her behavior for so long that she never learned accountability." "Is she in therapy?" "She's resistant," Dad admitted. "She still sees herself as the victim in all this." I sighed. "Then she's not ready to be part of my life. Maybe someday, but not now." They accepted that with more grace than I expected. After coffee, I hugged them goodbye. They felt like strangers I was getting to know, not parents I'd known my whole life. But maybe that was okay. Maybe we needed to start over from scratch. The wedding was 3 weeks away. Ethan and I had worked together to create something that felt authentically us. No expensive gown, just a simple ivory dress I loved. No huge wedding party, just his brother as best man and my friend Sarah, from work as maid of honor. No elaborate reception, just a dinner with people we cared about. Aunt Helen and Uncle Thomas were coming. Several cousins, Ethan's family, my colleagues, friends we'd made in Seattle, people who'd shown up for us, supported us, celebrated us. The night before the wedding, I had dinner with Ethan at our favorite restaurant. We talked about our future, our dreams, our plans. We wanted to buy a house in a few years. Maybe have kids eventually, though we weren't sure yet. Travel, build careers we were proud of, create a life filled with love and honesty. "No regrets?" he asked. squeezing my hand across the table. About us? Never. About your family? I thought about it. I regret that they weren't who I needed them to be. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret telling the truth. You inspired me, you know, Ethan said. The way you demanded to be seen, to be valued, it made me braver in my own life. We make each other brave, I said. The wedding day was perfect. Not perfect in the way Madison's was supposed to be, with every detail controlled and curated. Perfect because it was real. The vows we wrote ourselves made people cry. The food was delicious. The speeches were heartfelt and genuine. My parents sat quietly in the back, respecting boundaries, just present. Aunt Helen gave a toast about resilience and chosen family that had everyone nodding. During the reception, I looked around at the people gathered. This was my family, not defined by blood, but by choice, by respect, by genuine love. Ethan pulled me onto the dance floor for our first dance. As we swayed together, he whispered, "I'm so proud to be your husband. I'm proud to be your wife." In that moment, I felt it all. The journey from overlooked daughter to valued partner, from struggling student to successful professional, from someone begging for crumbs of approval to someone who knew her worth. I'd learned that your worth isn't determined by your family's approval, that the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally sometimes don't, and that says everything about them and nothing about you. I'd learned that real family is chosen, built on respect and genuine care, that success isn't about revenge or proving people wrong. It's about building a life you're proud of, on your own terms. I didn't regret giving my parents a chance to know the real me. Their response had shown me everything I needed to know. Now I was free to build my own family, my own life, my own happiness. The little girl who was overlooked, who slept with a bucket under a leaky ceiling, who worked 3 jobs and survived on 4 hours of sleep, had grown into a woman who knew her value, who demanded respect, who chose herself. And looking around at my wedding, at the man I loved and the people who truly cared about me, I felt something I'd never quite felt before. Peace, pride, contentment, home. Not the home I was born into, but the one I'd built. And it was beautiful. As Ethan spun me around the dance floor, I caught my reflection in the window. I saw a woman in a simple ivory dress, wearing an engagement ring she'd earned through her own success, surrounded by love she'd chosen. I saw someone strong, someone whole, someone free. And I smiled. Because my story wasn't about the family that failed me. It was about the woman I'd become despite them. It was about resilience and courage and the radical act of valuing yourself when others don't. It was about taking that envelope full of truth and proof and hard-won success and saying, "Here I am, see me, know me. This is who I've always been." And finally, blessedly, I saw myself clearly too. I saw someone worth celebrating. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever had to prove your worth to people who should have loved you unconditionally? How did you find the courage to stand up for yourself? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences matter, and sharing them might help someone else who's struggling with similar pain. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and realize they're not alone in their struggles. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel for more stories about resilience, family dynamics, and finding your strength. Share this with someone who might need to hear it, someone who's fighting to be seen and valued. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope it reminded you that your worth isn't determined by others' inability to see it. You are valuable, you are worthy, and you deserve people in your life who recognize that. Until next time, remember, the family you choose can be more powerful than the family you're born into. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. Take care, and be kind to yourselves.